My wife, Karen, demands to open our marriage for her irresistible coworker. How can I protect our marriage? My wife wants to open our marriage because she finds her coworker irresistible, and I'm at a loss for words. I need to get this off my chest. It's been eating me alive. My wife, who is 34, and I, who am 36, have been married for 8 years. I have always thought we had a nice thing going. Sure, no marriage is perfect, but I assumed we'd always work things out together. For context, I'm 5 feet 6 inches, and she's 5 feet 5 inches. My height has always been a sensitive matter for me. It's not like I obsess about it, but you can't avoid the odd barb or comment from others. However, my wife has never made me feel as if it matters. She used to call me her perfect match because we were so similar in height. It was one of those small gestures that made me feel like my wife truly loved me for who I was. But then Ethan happened. Ethan is her new coworker. He's 6 feet 4 inches, stunningly attractive, and the type of guy you'd see on the front of a fitness magazine. He's pleasant, humorous, and seems to know exactly what to say. At first, I didn't think much about it. She'd mentioned him occasionally, typically in passing. Ethan said the funniest thing at work today, or Ethan's such a genius at solving these problems. I assumed it was just standard business stuff. Everyone has that one coworker with whom they click, right? Then things started getting odd. She'd mention him more frequently, and with this tone in her voice that wasn't exactly gushing, but certainly wasn't indifferent. I'd catch her smiling at her phone, pretending it was just a funny meme Ethan shared in the group chat. She also started dressing differently. It wasn't anything dramatic, but enough to make me notice. She purchased a new perfume and stated that she simply wanted to switch things up. I convinced myself that I was overthinking it. Then came the shocker. One night, we were sitting on the couch, sharing a bottle of wine. She appeared a little tipsy, but not intoxicated. She abruptly stated, "I need to be honest with you. I find Ethan quite appealing. I can't quit thinking about him. But don't worry, I haven't acted on it." I just sat there, frozen. I wasn't sure what to say. Before I could digest it, she continued, "I believe we should consider opening the marriage so that I can explore these feelings. It may even bring us closer in the end." My brain short-circuited. I told her straight up that I wasn't comfortable with it. I did not sign up for an open marriage. The thought of her with someone else, let alone this Ethan guy, made me sick to my stomach. She quickly became defensive. "You're being insecure," she said. "You're letting your height anxiety cloud your judgment. This is not about you. It's about me discovering my genuine self." She made it sound like I was preventing her from embarking on a tremendous adventure of personal discovery. I felt like the evil person because I didn't want to see my wife fall into the arms of another man. She told me to be supportive, that this may be an opportunity for us to grow as a marriage. I felt as if I was losing my grasp on reality. The lady I'd been with for nearly a decade sat right in front of me, asking for permission to end our marriage. I wasn't sure whether to cry or yell. I just sat there numb. Since that night, things have been tense. She stopped addressing Ethan completely, but it feels forced, as if she's trying to dodge the matter. The tension between us is suffocating. I can't look at her without repeating our chat in my head. I keep wondering, if she's already so taken with him, what's preventing her from doing it anyway? Everything irritates me these days. If she chuckles at her phone, I worry whether he is texting her. If she gets home late, I can't help but wonder where she has been. I detest feeling this way. It's as if a giant invisible wall has formed between us, and I have no idea how to knock it down. Part of me wonders if I am being unreasonable. Maybe this is just modern relationships, and I am too old-fashioned to understand it. But the other, louder part of me feels deceived. How can I compete with a guy like Ethan? The fact that she even wants this makes me feel like I'm no longer good enough for her, as if I've already lost and hadn't realized I was fighting. I've been losing sleep over it, repeating the talk over and over, trying to figure out where we can go next. I am in love with her. I do not want to lose her, but I can't imagine sharing her with anybody else. I feel trapped and don't know what to do. I was told by someone, "You've already lost her, not because you did something wrong, but because she lacks the maturity to stay away from trouble." That rang true. When you find yourself attracted to someone while in a relationship, the best thing to do is remain away and let those feelings pass, rather than allowing them to develop into something uncontrolled. She is not mature enough to do it. So, I'll tell her exactly what I've realized. She can remain away, or do whatever she wants after the divorce is completed. We all have to make decisions. She doesn't get to have everything. That is terribly selfish, and she used gaslighting to force me to satisfy her immature desires. I was blamed for infertility by my ex-husband and in-laws, despite normal results, so I left. Now my ex has lost everything due to his lies. I was married to my ex-husband, Jake, for 5 years. Initially, we had a good relationship. When we first met, Jake was charming, amusing, and easy to chat with. I genuinely believed I had met someone who would always have my back. But everything changed once we married. Jake's parents, particularly his mother, began pressuring us to have children almost immediately following the wedding. At first, the comments were lighthearted, such as, "When will we have a grandchild?" However, it quickly became the only topic they wanted to discuss. For reference, Jake is an only child whose parents were extremely controlling. His mother was the type of person who had a plan for everything: how Jake should live, who he should marry, and what his life should be like. While we were dating, I had no idea how much power his family wielded. However, following the wedding, it became evident that Jake had a strong desire to gain their approval for all he did. He was especially eager for his mother's approval, which produced a lot of stress between us. Around 2 years into our marriage, Jake's parents' push to have children became overwhelming. We had tried, but nothing was happening, so I went to the doctor to make sure everything was fine on my end. All of my tests came back normal, which was a relief for me. Naturally, I suggested Jake get tested as well, just to rule out any problems on his end. That's when things started to unravel. Jake refused to be tested. He acted as if I had insulted him by even mentioning it. He asserted that he wasn't the problem and refused to talk about it anymore. I was frustrated by his reaction since all I wanted to do was figure out what was going on so we could move forward. However, Jake was locked in a haughty mindset, as if admitting a potential problem on his side was impossible or shameful. As Jake continued to decline testing, I began to feel bad about myself. Even though the physicians had told me that nothing was wrong with me, his actions made me feel as if I was somehow to blame. Meanwhile, Jake's parents persisted with their intrusive questions and comments. Every time we visited them, the subject of their prospective grandchildren dominated the conversation. It got to the point where I dreaded going to family gatherings because I knew they'd just talk about having grandchildren. No matter how many times I attempted to explain that these things take time or that we were working on them, his mother gave me a condescending look, as if she was disappointed in me. Then they began making direct statements to me about how they hoped I was not the problem. At one family gathering where a slew of Jake's distant relatives were present, Jake's mother bluntly informed me that she hoped I wasn't damaged, in a very loud voice with a phony, worried expression on her face. I felt humiliated. Jake said nothing. He just sat there, awkwardly laughing it off as if it was no big thing. That stung more than anything. I believed he should have defended me, but instead, he allowed his parents to humiliate me. When I tried to talk to him about it, he dismissed it, saying it was simply his mother's sense of humor. A few months later, we had another family meal, and Jake's mother chose to make another harsh remark. This time, she did not hold back. She went into hysterics, wailing about how old she was getting and how I was wrecking her dreams of having grandchildren. She then started screaming in my face, calling me a broken woman and a disgrace to womanhood. Everyone stayed silent. I was horrified. I did everything I could to keep myself from saying something rude. I knew she enjoyed humiliating me in front of her family, but this was beyond uncalled for. I looked around to see if anyone had anything to say, but everyone just kept looking down at their plates. The only answer was Jake's father nodding in agreement with his wife. Jake, like the rest of his family, simply gazed at his plate, pretending nothing was going on. That was it. That was my breaking point. I couldn't believe that despite everything I'd gone through while trying to figure out why we couldn't conceive, Jake refused to defend me. Seeing him sit there passively, without even looking at me, let me realize where our marriage stood. That night, when we arrived home, I packed my bags and informed Jake that I was going. He hardly reacted. He didn't seem to care that I was done. He was so accustomed to his parents being the focus that he had no idea he had lost me. That only made me angry. How difficult is it to stand up for someone you claim to love? I left that day and have never looked back. Leaving was not an easy decision, but it was the best one I've ever made. After I left, I moved in with a buddy for a few months while I planned my future moves. I filed for divorce, and the process went fairly smoothly. Jake did not fight it, and we ended things peacefully. After the divorce was finalized, I focused on reconstructing my life. I returned to my profession, surrounded myself with helpful friends, and finally met someone new, my now husband, Sam. Sam has been an absolute breath of fresh air. In many ways, he is diametrically opposed to Jake. He listens, communicates, and most importantly, always looks out for me. We ended up dating for only a year because I became pregnant, and we rushed to marry. Let me tell you, I've had a much better time with Sam in this short period than I did with Jake. Sam and I were ecstatic about my pregnancy. It meant so much more to me after everything I'd been through with Jake and his family. Now, let's look at what transpired recently. One day, while out shopping with Sam, I ran across Jake's parents in the mall. To recap, it's been 2 years since I last saw them. I was visibly pregnant at the time, and their reaction was priceless. They were stunned, to say the least. They tried to be courteous by making small chat, but I could see they were shocked to see me pregnant. I'll admit that seeing their reactions made me feel vindicated. They spent years torturing and discouraging me for being unable to conceive, yet look where I am now. I hastily said goodbye and nearly forgot I had met them. Sam and I were very busy preparing for the baby, and I had no desire to linger on the past. But then, approximately a week after the mall incident, Jake began texting and calling me. Initially, I ignored them. I assumed his parents had informed him of my pregnancy and new marriage, and Jake was just being nosy. But he did not stop. I eventually opened one of his texts. He was infuriated. When his parents discovered I was pregnant, they challenged him about our marriage and why we had never had children. Jake apparently never corrected his parents when they assumed I was the reason we couldn't have children. In fact, he encouraged people to believe I was the problem. When they saw I was pregnant, they understood he had been lying to them all along. According to what I've heard, his parents were outraged when they discovered the truth. They accused him of squandering years of their lives by convincing them that they would never have grandkids because of me, when in truth, Jake was most likely the one with fertility troubles. To make matters worse for Jake, his parents had always intended to leave him a sizable inheritance. However, after finding his lies, they cut him off totally. Of course, Jake blamed me for everything. He said that if I had not flaunted my pregnancy in front of his parents, none of this would have occurred. He accused me of ruining his life because he had lost everything, even the inheritance he had hoped for. I couldn't believe he was blaming this on me. I simply moved on with my life, and it was not my fault that his lies came back to haunt him. I have not answered Jake's messages, and I do not intend to. I'm content with where I am today, and I have no desire to become engaged in his family turmoil. In my opinion, Jake dug his own hole. He would not be in this situation if he had not allowed his parents to treat me like garbage or lied to them about why we couldn't have children. I really wish Jake would stop making me feel terrible about something that is entirely his fault. Despite my intense feelings about this, I spoke with a friend yesterday and told her all that had transpired. She told me I was wrong to leave Jake like that, and that I should have pushed him harder to complete the examinations. She also claimed I should not have spoken with Jake's parents, and that it was petty of me to do so. I mean, I can see how I might seem petty. I never wanted to hurt Jake. I must say, however, that Jake being punished for his falsehoods is a pleasant bonus. Anyway, my husband told me that anything my buddy claimed was false, but I can't help but wonder if there was some truth to what she said. So, am I wrong for leaving my ex-husband after his family labeled me broken? And am I wrong not to feel sorry about him losing his inheritance? Okay, so things have grown much more complicated, and I really need to vent. After I shared my original story, I assumed that was the end of it, but oh boy, was I mistaken. Jake has been blowing up my phone nonstop. I blocked his number, but he then began texting me on social media. I also blocked him there, but he kept creating new accounts just to reach out. He even began phoning from several numbers. I did not respond to any of it, but the texts grew increasingly frantic and angry over time. At first, he was simply blaming me for damaging his connection with his parents. But now he's gone over the deep end, claiming I owe him since I took away his future. He insists that if I had stayed with him, none of this would have occurred. It's really exhausting. Some individuals who commented on my initial post agreed with my buddy and questioned why I didn't push harder to persuade Jake to take fertility tests. So let me be clear, I tried. I truly tried. But every time I suggested it, Jake would shut me down entirely. He acted as if I had betrayed him simply by bringing it up. He refused to speak to me for days after I inquired about the tests. I tried everything I could to be patient, but there's only so much you can do when someone is so stubborn. I eventually realized I couldn't force him to do something he didn't want to do, so I had to let it go for my own sanity. Some individuals have also accused me of being selfish for displaying my pregnancy in front of Jake's parents. Look, I hadn't planned to run into them. I was just out shopping with my husband, minding my own business. I wasn't seeking them specifically to rub my pregnancy in their faces. However, I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel great to see their astonished reactions. I experienced what I can only describe as a nightmare with them, continually belittling me, making me feel broken, and blaming me for everything. So yeah, it felt nice to demonstrate that I wasn't the problem or broken. But I wasn't trying to upset Jake or make any drama. All I wanted was to enjoy my life. I viewed our interaction as a fun boost to my self-esteem. Jake has pushed things to a whole new level. He didn't simply message me. He found out where I live. I have no idea how he found my address, and I am afraid. He arrived at my residence 2 nights ago. He hammered on the door for at least 15 minutes, wanting to speak with me. Fortunately, my husband, Sam, was home and promptly instructed him to leave. Jake refused, claiming that he only wanted to explain himself, but Sam quickly shut that down. He warned Jake that if he didn't leave, we would contact the cops. Jake eventually backed down, but not before shrieking that I had wrecked everything for him. It was quite terrifying. I can't help but fear that if I let things continue unchecked, he'll do something even more insane. Many people asked me how I discovered Jake had lost his fortune. Fortunately, I didn't learn all of the specifics straight from him. From what I've gathered from his angry messages, it appears that his parents feel completely betrayed. They were enraged when they found that the reason they never had grandchildren wasn't because of me, but rather Jake himself. They believe he lied to them for years, convincing them that I was the problem. Because their whole attention was on having grandkids, they thought Jake no longer deserved the inheritance they had intended to leave him. According to my understanding, they have now completely cut him off, both emotionally and financially. Jake is heartbroken by this, which I suppose is why he's pursuing me so aggressively. I do not feel bad about him losing the inheritance. I mean, what was I meant to do? Stay in a terrible marriage so his parents don't find out the truth? That is not on me. Jake made his own decisions. He could have told his parents the truth at any time, but instead, he allowed them to mistreat me and never defended me. So no, I don't feel sorry for what happened to him. If anything, it seems like karma is finally catching up with him. However, I have to admit that I am a little nervous. Jake's behavior is becoming increasingly unpredictable. My husband and I are already discussing taking extra precautions in case Jake turns up again. We've considered placing cameras around the house and even obtaining a restraining order if he doesn't back down. I want to believe that he will ultimately give up, but something tells me that he will not let this go easily. He seems to be spiraling out of control, and I have no idea what he's going to do next. So that's where things are right now. I believe this chapter in my life was over, but Jake had other intentions. I simply hope he quickly sees that I am not to blame for his difficulties. All I did was move on with my life, and to be honest, I am happier than I have ever been. I simply want to be left alone so I can enjoy the life I've created with my husband and our upcoming baby. I'll keep you posted if anything more happens, but for now, I'm hoping Jake gets the word and leaves me alone. If not, I suppose we'll have to escalate the situation and engage authorities. Hopefully, that does not happen, but who knows at this point. Thank you to everyone who responded to my first post and offered suggestions. It made me realize that I wasn't crazy for leaving Jake or feeling the way I do now. I'll report again if anything changes, but for now, I'm just trying to keep focused on the future and avoid letting Jake drag me back into the past. Hello everyone. I didn't expect to be back with another update so soon, but things have taken a wild turn. After my last update, I assumed Jake would finally leave me alone. I mean, even showing up at my place was already a step too far, right? To Jake, that was insignificant. Instead, he's devised a new strategy, which is just as crazy as it sounds. After Sam, my husband, and I made it obvious that we did not want Jake anywhere near us, he began bombarding me with messages again. Instead of being upset and blaming me for everything, Jake's demeanor improved dramatically. Suddenly, he begged me for assistance. He began emailing me things like, "I need you to talk to my parents, and you owe me this." He transitioned from acting like a complete lunatic to requesting favors. At this point, I was perplexed but also intrigued by what he planned to accomplish. Jake is now certain that if I speak with his parents and explain everything, they will give him his fortune back. He wants me to go to them, tell them it was a misunderstanding, and somehow persuade them that he is still deserving of the riches they were planning to leave him. At first, I assumed it was a joke. There's no way he believes I'd do that, right? But he's completely serious. He acts as if I can simply wave a magic wand and make everything better for him. He even said that if I hadn't bumped into them, they would never have found out, and he'd be set for life. I couldn't believe the crap coming out of his mouth. I couldn't believe he didn't realize he had caused all of this by lying to them and treating me like garbage for years. His lack of self-awareness was both strange and frightening. It takes a lot of ego to entirely disavow responsibility for your own acts, right? Anyway, I did not react to any of his erratic texts, and he became increasingly desperate. In a matter of days, his communications progressed from begging to threatening. He said things such as, "If you don't help me, I'll make sure everyone knows you're a liar, and you'll regret this." This is ridiculous. He's clearly on a downward spiral, and he's now attempting to intimidate me into doing anything he wants. Unfortunately for him, I'm no longer terrified of him. I've dealt with enough of his behavior to know he's just talking. So, I'm not getting embroiled in his family drama again. I tried to dodge him by banning all of his new phone numbers and accounts, but I have a nagging sense he will not stop. He's already come to my place once, so what's keeping him from trying again? My husband and I have discussed getting a restraining order, but we are still deciding on the best course of action. I don't want things to become worse, but I also can't continue living like this. I can't keep worrying if Jake will show up out of nowhere with new demands or threats. If he shows up again and I refuse to do what he asks, will he harm me? He's clearly spinning and not in the best of moods, so I can't say for certain that he wouldn't. To make matters worse, I discovered that Jake's parents had been communicating with some mutual friends. Apparently, they now blame me for their family's disintegration. They believe I influenced Jake into concealing the truth and that I am the reason they are cutting him off. I'm not sure where to start with that. Everyone in Jake's life seemed to be in utter denial about who he truly is, and I find myself caught in the center of their distorted reality. Anyway, I've been doing my best to ignore Jake's attempts to contact me, but I'm not sure how much longer I can avoid the problem. I just want to concentrate on my pregnancy and my life with Sam, but Jake is making it impossible to do so. He's not just trying to get back into his parents' good graces. He's also attempting to drag me down with him, and I won't allow that to happen. I haven't decided what to do yet, but I'm thinking about contacting his parents myself, not to aid Jake, but to set the record straight once and for all. If they choose to blame me for their son's falsehoods, that is their choice, but I will not sit back and let them spread rumors about me. At the same time, I'm concerned that any interaction with them will only make matters worse. It seems like a lose-lose situation. So, that's where things stand right now. Jake has gone from angry and blaming me to begging and threatening, and I'm not sure what his next move will be. I just hope he realizes I'm not going to aid him and backs off before things spiral out of control. I'll keep you all posted if anything else happens, but for now, I'm just figuring out my next steps. Thank you for your continued support. I never anticipated this problem to escalate so quickly, but it helps to know that I'm not alone in coping with it. I'll update again if Jake does anything else, which, let's be honest, he most likely will. Hello everyone. I have some bad and good news. The bad news is this will likely be my final update. I know many of you have been quite invested in my story, and I am grateful that so many of you have been checking in on me daily to see that my baby and I are safe. As for the good news, I'm finally free of Jake. After Jake's latest round of begging and threatening, I was beginning to worry. Sam, my husband, and I had been talking about moving for a long time, and with everything going on, we decided it was the right moment to go out of town and start over somewhere far away. We located a new apartment in a completely different state, packed up our belongings, and departed without telling anyone where we were going. I was just finished with the drama. Besides, I'm pregnant and needed to focus on myself and the kid. But immediately before we departed, something happened that I can't believe. Remember when Jake's parents blamed me for everything? It appears that they chose to approach Jake personally. I learned about this from one of Jake's cousins, who later became a close friend. Clearly, the confrontation was explosive. Jake originally attempted to blame me for everything and persuade his parents to continue their hatred for me in order to reclaim his money. But Jake's parents were adamant about finding out why he wanted the inheritance so severely. They believed they had helped prepare him for life. They found him a terrific job, bought him a house, paid off his mortgage, and advised him on how to invest in good assets to provide him with financial security. They eventually learned the truth from Jake. Jake had been lying to them about his finances for years. He informed them that he was saving money, working hard, and preparing to take over the family business. In truth, he was spending all of their money on frivolous activities, such as online gambling and holidays with his cronies. He never told them about it and maintained the pretense of being a responsible son to preserve his place in their estate. When his parents learned this, they were furious. They not only cut Jake off financially, but also officially disowned him. They told him they no longer wanted anything to do with him. The inheritance he was so determined to retrieve was gone. Jake's parents apparently spoke with their family first, who suggested that withholding an inheritance was unnecessary. The family advocated confronting Jake to hear his version of the story and maybe reinstating him in the will if he admitted his mistakes. However, as Jake's parents learned the whole truth, any chance of reconciliation was lost. I'm not sure what Jake is going to do now, but I'm pleased it's no longer my responsibility. From what I've heard, he's trying to figure out his next move. I wish him the best of success with it. After hearing all of this, I felt a lot of comfort. For years, I thought I was the one who had failed, that I hadn't done enough to make things right with Jake and his family. But now it's evident that Jake was hiding a lot more from everyone, including me. His parents finally recognized him for who he truly is, and it feels like karma has come full circle. As for Sam and me, we've adjusted into our new house in another state and are doing well. I feel much safer now that we are away from Jake and his turmoil. We added security cameras just in case, but there has been no trace of Jake or any other strange communications. We even obtained a restraining order before leaving to guarantee that he could not follow us or try anything else. It feels great to know that he can't come after us anymore. Oh, and here's the icing on top. Jake's parents actually contacted me. I received a note from them through the same cousin who alerted me about the confrontation, apologizing for how they had treated me over the years. They said they had no idea Jake was lying to them and were sorry for everything they had put me through. I'm not sure whether I'll ever respond to them, but it was wonderful to receive some sort of apology after everything. It's incredible how much things have changed. Anyway, I'm relieved to be able to focus on my life without the weight of all this turmoil. Sam and I are very excited about our baby, and I'm pleased we're in a quiet place now to embrace this new chapter. The last few months have been extremely difficult, but I believe we've come out stronger. Thank you again to everyone who has supported me throughout this struggle. Your comments and advice gave me the strength to keep going, and I thank you more than you know. That's all for now.